I do want to read part of the statement from the White House and then get your reaction from it. This is what the White House said. Quote, as a lifelong friend of Israel, President Biden has publicly and privately expressed his views that major changes in a democracy to be enduring must have as broad a consensus as possible. It is unfortunate that the vote today took place with the slimmest possible majority. What do you make of that response?
Well, I think that President President Biden has decided that this issue is too important for the future of relations between the United States and Israel for him to honor the basic principle that of non-interference in the affairs of other states. The U.S.-Israel relationship is a special one. That's the way it's referred to, because there is a sense that not only do we share common interests, many of them strategic interests, but we also share common values. And it's the values side of the relationship that I think President Biden is most concerned about. Because if Israel goes down this road towards illiberal democracy, it will be acting against one of the most important common values that we have, that we are like-minded democracies. And a lot of support for Israel in the United States comes from that fact. As we know, interests can come and go, but values can be the cement of a relationship like this. And so I think he's decided to speak out and to try to encourage Netanyahu to seek a consensus. The fact that Netanyahu has chosen effectively to ignore his advice and push ahead puts the president now in a situation where he has to decide, what is he going to insist? Is he going to pressure Israel? Is he going to use various leverage that he has available, particularly security assistance, to try to get Netanyahu to pay attention to his concerns? It seems to me he's not going to do any of those things. But essentially, he will continue to use his bully pulpit to encourage consensus. But I don't think he's prepared to go further than that in terms of sanctioning the Netanyahu government for its unwillingness to listen to him.
You're the former U.S. ambassador to Israel. Let's say this was happening under you. What would you suggest that the president do? What would you like him to do?
I think that first of all, it's better that the president express himself privately to the prime minister, but in very clear-cut terms. I think that keeping him at arm's length, not inviting him to Washington, is an effective way of registering his opposition and disappointment. But there's a limit to how far that can go, because we have other issues on the agenda with Israel that we need to be discussing. Potential for normalization with Saudi Arabia, the need to deal with an Iran that's approaching the nuclear threshold. So the reality is that we don't have great leverage. I do not believe that it's wise to cut security assistance for Israel in an effort to get it to toe the line on this issue, because already Israel's enemies have noticed the split in the country, reservists now refusing to volunteer in the thousands, the army chiefs expressing great concern about what this means for the future of Israel's People's Army. And if we were to start to cut security assistance, I think it would send a bad signal to the common enemies that we have out there that we're trying to deter. So I think that he can do what he can by registering his disapproval, making it clear to Netanyahu that he's not welcome in Washington until he fixes this. And then he's got a big question that he has to answer for himself that I think the president is struggling with at the moment, which is that there is an opportunity to achieve full normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel, like a full peace deal, since the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia seems ready for that. And the president has to decide, should he pursue that? If it's going to be in the face of Netanyahu's opposition to his insistence that he pursue a consensus on the judicial changes, or should he tell Netanyahu that unless he stops the judicial changes, he's not going to pursue the peace deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia? That is something that I think he should be considering, because the deal cannot go through unless the United States is prepared to do a whole lot of things that are difficult and expensive for the United States to do. To do this on behalf of an Israeli government that is ignoring his counsel and pursuing an anti-democratic agenda is, I think, a contradiction in policy.
Do you think that this is going to change Israel's standing with other international allies? Will it strain any other relationships?
Well, others in Europe are kind of following President Biden's lead and expressing concerns about it, but they are not as involved and they are not as concerned. They're democracies, they care about democracy, but they don't have that special relationship with Israel that would give them standing, possible exception of Germany, because of its fraught history with the Jewish people. But I think that they essentially are staying out of it and are not likely to condition their relations on this issue. More likely in the European case that they will condition their relations on policy towards Palestinians, which this government with its ultra-nationalist members is pushing in the West Bank in a way that is causing alarm bells to ring in European capitals. So there's a bit of a difference in terms of what their priorities are and Biden's priorities.